Well, hello there and welcome back to the very latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, are you a midlifer who has recently gone through a bad breakup or a divorce? If so, my podcast today is all about how to rebuild yourself so you can come back stronger than ever before. And this involves working on your confidence, your self-worth, and your self-respect. And to help me today, I have two brilliant guests. I have the wonderful Claire and James Davis, who are the Midlife Mentors, transformative coaches who help midlifers reclaim control of their body, mind, and life without making huge sacrifices. Guys, how are you doing today?
Well, we're great. Thank you, James. How are you?
Thanks, James. Lovely intro. Thank you.
Did you like that?
I loved it. It's like you just did it off the cuff.
Off the cuff, completely randomly. That's what I did. I felt the pressure to do it well for you, so I've done that.
Oh, bless you.
Because we spoke recently. I came onto your podcast. So anyone that hasn't heard that, do go and listen to the Midlife Mentors podcast.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be plugging that later. A great episode. Love doing that with you. So I thought I had to get you on here to help my audience and to teach them more things that you do. So you better explain. I've got so many questions for you. The one thing, I haven't scripted this, as you know, but I've got things in my brain that are going to pop out randomly, and we'll see what happens as we go along. First of all, how do you define midlife? What sort of age is that exactly? Because it could be a variety of things, couldn't it?
I think for us, it's 40 plus. I think that's where we kind of talk about midlife. But again, some people out there define it as like 37, 38, and all the way up to your 60s, to be honest. I mean, we work with a variety of ages of clients, but I would say for us, it's around 40 to 65 is the age range that we get midlifers coming to work with us.
Excellent. The reason I asked that is tomorrow would have been my grandma's 103rd birthday. She died very recently, didn't quite make it to 103, but she was really fit and active until her 90s, really. And she was great, but then the last few years, not so much. So can you explain exactly what you do as midlife mentors then to help these people?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were really inspired. Like, our background was running fitness retreats for many, many years. And I guess our clients were kind of mid-30s or older. And we saw a lot of similar things presenting. But more than that, it was kind of reaching that age ourselves and seeing our friends just be like, oh, this beginning of the end, I've just got to accept the expanding waistline, low energy. Or, it doesn't have to be like this. It really was like listening to friends' stories and just going, no, it doesn't have to be this way. We're living and breathing this stuff. It inspired us to go off and research further and really start looking at the person as a whole. So I think where a lot of approaches go wrong is thinking, you can just fix what we call the external. So, I don't like the way I look or I feel, so I'll go on a diet or I'll do a workout plan. But it's only going to get you so far. So I think the main thing we do is actually look at what's holding people back in terms of their psychology, their limiting beliefs, their habits, and things like that, and look at the self-identity they want to step into. Midlife is a great time to reinvent yourself, because often by that time in life, we'll have fallen into a role, right? We've gone through the career, maybe we've been parents, but we're probably reaching that stage of life where our kids are like old enough to look after themselves or potentially have left home. We might be at a career crossroads, and we can actually stop and pause and go, actually, what do I want from life now? What the values I want to embody? How am I going to go forward from here? Recognizing that, like, as you said there with your dear grandmother, there is still a long, long road ahead where you can achieve so much.
I think that's why it's really important that we help when we say you introduce us beautifully with body, mind, and life. We actually say body, mind, and soul, because it is a real inside out program. We've come from a background of psychology, stress management, NLP, coaching, and we wanted to help people, like James said, actually feel really positive about the future rather than just looking down the barrel of a gun and going, oh my goodness, is that it? Is this as good as it gets? So I just need to accept that this is my lot. And we want to wake people up. We want to wake midlifers up and go, my goodness, you can live an exceptional life full of potential. And that really excites us. And that's what we do.
I think what you've done, because I've been following you quite a bit now since we spoke before, and watching your videos and your channels and your website, you are quite inspirational in what you do. And I love that, because you practice what you preach, don't you, as well?
Yes.
We walk our talk. We were just saying before we started this podcast, we were up at like 5 a.m. this morning and trudging to the gym in the pouring rain. So it's part of what we do now, and we recognise the importance of instilling good habits and good discipline. And I'll tell you a little secret for your readers here. discipline in one area of your life will overspill into discipline in all areas of your life and will benefit you in all kinds of ways. And yeah, things might feel uncomfortable at first, but when you actually step back and go, look, what am I actually getting from this? What's my goal? What am I achieving from it? That will inspire you to keep going. And yeah, we do walk our talk.
And we do like a lot of the mindset stuff as well. So a lot of the psychology, we make sure that those things that we talk to clients about, the mindset reps, it's not just about the physical reps, but it's the mindset reps, because we're in a world now, look at what's going on in the world now, in the UK now. It's so easy to just get pulled down, to get into a fear place, an anxiety place. As soon as you wake up in the morning, if you switch the news on in the morning, you're starting your day off in a high anxiety place. So yeah, we walk our talk with all the mindset stuff that we do. We do a lot of self-development, and we invest a lot in ourselves, on our own self-development and our business, and we've got our own coaches. So yeah, we do walk our talk. Absolutely.
Very, very impressive. Now, it is true. So do you think that a midlife crisis is inevitable for many people?
So I researched midlife crisis. It was actually coined by, there's various events, but there was a psychotherapist, his name escapes me now. He coined the term first, I think in the 50s, and talked about looking at the downhill road towards his inevitable death. But it turns out afterwards, a few years later, he admitted he was actually depressed at the time that he wrote that paper. But he coined that midlife crisis, and it's been talked about, like if you go back to literature from the Middle Ages or earlier, people do talk about this phase of life. And I think it's a natural phase where you kind of, when we're younger and we look at midlife, we think we'll be at the pinnacle then, we'll have achieved everything we want to achieve. We will be bathing in this golden glow of success. But actually, reality is when we get there, we probably haven't hit all the goals we wanted. We might have had some challenges in life, like, relationship breakups. We've probably got ailing parents. We're looking after kids. There's a whole load of pressures and stresses on us. So it can become a very tricky time. And I think because we are becoming more aware of our mortality, not to be morbid, we do start thinking about what we've achieved and what we want to get from life going forward. But it's important to view that positively, not become morbid about it, and see like there is still a long way ahead and you can still achieve lots and lots.
And I think obviously you've got the hormonal changes, right? So actually I think the midlife crisis is kind of inevitable for a lot of people, but we can kind of reframe that. It is it's not a midlife crisis. I think it's a self-identity crisis, because what's happening with our hormones absolutely has a really big impact on how we're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that's not, that's a lot about what we do as well. We work with men and women because there's huge changes happening with men, which is called the andropause. And obviously the women, perimenopause and menopause, there are huge changes. And actually people can feel very alone. Suicide in men goes up at midlife quite considerably. So actually helping people understand what they're going through, educating and then empowering them with information about what's happening to them physiologically can actually make them feel less alone, be more compassionate with themselves, actually be more open to seeking help and advice, and then taking some steps forward in the right community with the right mentors. Absolutely.
Well, this is where it ties into our subject today, which is about people that are going through a midlife breakup. And many of my clients are in this situation. They come to me. I have clients of all ages. They come to me because they are recently gone through a divorce, a bad breakup, and they are just confused. They a tough identity, like you just said as well. Don't know what their value is. Don't know if they find it much more difficult than they did when they did 20 years ago to find people. Don't feel as attractive. Opportunities aren't there. They're working from home. They can't go out as much. Don't know what to do. So what advice would you give people who are going through this? Where do you start?
This is a passion of ours because I'm divorced, James is divorced. And one of the key things that helps both of us individually was actually just starting. When you feel like that, everything feels very, very out of control, very out of control. And you can just feel like you're in a spinning wheel. And the only thing that ever helped me get my control back was actually starting self-care and starting to look after myself a little bit better. I mean, I'm sure I'm not alone here. In the first few months, I couldn't eat, I found it really, really a real struggle to look after myself in that way. And then I just went out eating, drinking, not sleeping very well, just like really not looking after myself in the complete opposite way, piling on the pounds. And it wasn't until I started looking after myself again, getting my nutrition right, actually starting to move my body, starting to get a bit of my power back. Physically, I have to say that actually emotionally, the rest kind of started to follow. And you're able to deal with the stress far better that you're going through in a breakup or a divorce when you are looking after yourself. And it's really easy to say that right at the beginning. And here's the thing, we're all just going to have to suck up that it's going to be awful at the beginning. You know, it's not nice for anyone. But as the sooner you can start getting your power back with actually starting to nourish yourself, your gut health, your movement, not drinking a bottle of wine every single night like I did, all of that kind of stuff, you can start dealing with stress a lot better. You can start dealing with your emotions a lot better. So that would be one of the things that we work with lots of clients that have gone through going through breakups and divorces, and they come to us to get that power back physically, mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Claire said there. Self-care is definitely so important, but I mean, it could be that initially you're not in a position yourself to do that, because I know I went through this. My 17 plus year relationship ended in my 40s. I know how devastated that left me. And I think it's important to acknowledge that you are going to go through the stages of grief if you come out of a long-term relationship. Be compassionate with yourself about that. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to mourn. Take your time with it, but you know, there is a brighter road ahead. So what I say to anyone is do start taking those small steps. And for me, totally resonates what you said there. I'd last dated in my 20s, and suddenly I'm in my 40s, and the whole landscape had changed. This is before COVID as well. But suddenly, you know, everything's on apps. I couldn't get my head around those, didn't really like them.
He actually he refused to go on dates. He was living in Ibiza at the time. He refused to go on dates if they were on the other side of the island, which is about half an hour wide.
I know. But initially, I couldn't date for ages. My confidence was shot, you know, and I think that's something that people may feel. If you've been in a long-term relationship and it ends, you do have this. You've invested in a relationship. It's you can think of it like an asset that's been taken away. So you're going to feel that loss. But it's also, if a relationship ends, in a way, a subtle way, you can feel like a form of rejection to yourself as well. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough.
I'm not going to look after myself.
So it's really important to do that work on your worthiness and stuff. And I had the toolkit to do it, but I had to go through that period of mourning first, then going a little bit crazy, and then actually finding the right kind of mentors and courses to go on to start getting me going again, until I could start practicing those tools myself and getting me back on my feet. So
that's really important, is getting the right people around you. I would say, you know, seek help, seek a good community, seek mentors.
Social circle as well.
Yes,
social circle support.
Absolutely.
What I tend to find is that people often get complacent in relationships, and they think this is forever now, and they get into routines, get into ruts, stay in the same job, don't go to the gym like they should, don't look after themselves, thinking we're going to grow old together. And suddenly they find themselves single and they've let themselves go. That's the phrase, isn't it? So I guess that's when
you've let yourself go.
Yes.
Oh, you've let yourself go a bit.
That's exactly what happens. I'm thinking of Stuart Lee here in my brain. Great fan of Stuart Lee, who has let himself go at the moment. But that's another story. But let that one go. He's fully aware of that. If anyone doesn't know Stuart Lee, is go and watch his videos. Fantastic. Great stand-up. Anyway, back to the point. The tangent here. So people, they do, don't they? People do. And I think men in particular fall into this trap. Because you look at online dating and dating apps, as I do every single day as part of my job. Women have their hair and makeup generally. They can look good in pictures and still look after themselves. Men tend to not always as blessed, shall we say. They are, James, you wouldn't have seen the male profiles on these things. But I imagine
maybe
you never know.
Maybe you have. Maybe
he has.
Maybe you have a little delve. You never know what's going on. Not to judge here. So, but I look at men and women profiles all the time, and women look at the men's profiles and look like serial killers. That's what they say. They do, and they're very scared because the men aren't smiling, looking unhappy. I think men that do look after themselves and look quite fit and active and are blessed with hair, for example, over 50. Not many people have got that. So these men aren't getting the same success rates as women are. But then there's all different things that happen, because when you do get over 50 for men, there are more opportunities in general, because there are simply less decent men even alive than there are. This is my realities of dating that happen here. So I think that's great. They can come to you to maybe sort of rebuild themselves and reboot themselves.
Yes.
That's the important thing. And it's the
Yeah.
mindset, isn't it? But it's very hard to start when you're at rock bottom, to know what to do and how to actually motivate yourself to do that. So
yeah, and I honestly think that power of just getting a bit of your confidence back and going and doing something for yourself and looking after yourself, it starts building up that confidence, that self-worth, and actually that self-respect as well. And I think a lot of us lose that in relationships, like you said, and that can actually be the people that we work with when they've gone through that breakup and that divorce. That can be, I mean, it's so empowering. Like, we see people completely transform in 8 weeks once they've got that routine. Because again, your routine goes out of whack, doesn't it, as well? You've got no routine. So even just getting up and having a purpose and doing something where someone's supporting you, that's really, really empowering, and just little baby steps.
Yeah, after that. And also, it's a really good point you make there. We do get complacent in relationships. We tend to, like, after a long time, take them for granted. But relationships like a plant, you've got to look after it. You've got to water it. You can't just chuck it in the corner and hope it survives. You've got to invest in it as well. But that's why self-care, if you're currently between relationships, is so important, because once you are back in a relationship again, you'll keep that up. You're investing in you. And it's a question of, like, asking yourself every day when you get up, like, what's today got for me? Who do I want to be today? How am I going to show up today? And of course, that's going to manifest as really positive energy in your relationship as well. So whether you're single or whether you're in a relationship, that's going to pay dividends for you.
Completely agree. You touched upon small steps, and I completely agree with that as well. Doing little things, even little things now, if you feel really bad and low confidence, even getting a haircut or getting a new outfit or going to the gym once or going for a walk around the block, there's little things we can do to sort of rebuild ourselves. And when you start doing that, you can form new routines. And I think there are things you can do. It's very easy to go on a dating profile and on a dating app and create a profile and then do it wrong and get disheartened because you've created a really terrible profile, but it's still a starting point. That's what I think. It's better than nothing, better than sitting around hoping Mr. and Mrs. Right will knock on your door magically and walk in. Although someone did tell me that someone brought a pizza around and they went on a date with them. So it does happen occasionally.
Oh, wow.
Very lucky. Dating the pizza driver. That's there's a lot of videos like that on the YouTube, apparently.
Yeah, sort of many an interesting video.
It is. You know, James. There's lots of videos. Yes, we'll keep it clear. Okay, I'm gonna go back again, because you two have been together for 7 years. You said, is that right? Now, I think you mentioned to me before this. You knew each other a bit before that point, but when you got together, what obstacles did you have in terms of? Oh, you're laughing now. In terms of relationships and dealing with all this starting again.
Oh, wow. James.
How long have you got, James?
Yeah.
Is that about a can of worms now? Have I?
Yeah.
No. Do you know what? This actually really is useful, because
it is really helpful to tell people.
We've both gone off and thought we'd done our own work on ourselves to get over the kind of trauma and the hurt and develop ourselves. And we had to a degree, but then when we got together, we thought we were like happily walking down the road, not realizing we were actually tugging these big trunks of baggage behind us. And lo and behold, those trunks collided and exploded. And we realized we still had a lot to work through in stuff that was triggering us for each other. I think when you've come out of a long relationship and you go into another one, sometimes there's going to be feelings that come up around, am I going to be betrayed again? How safe am I? Things like that. And you have to be prepared to unpack and work on that. Otherwise, quite honestly, you're never going to move forward and move ahead. So we had like a honeymoon period, I guess.
Which was only very brief, really. It was very brief until all of our baggages started colliding.
Yeah. But the important thing was, I think, really being open and honest with each other, however painful and hard that was, and being prepared to work through it. Like, you ask yourself, like, this is causing me so much pain right now in this moment. Do I want to stay in this? Because it'd be easy just to check out, right, and go, right, I'll jump back on Tinder and whatever. But it's like, no, I know what's here. I know what we want from this. Let's invest and work through this.
And I think it was like knowing that it was your own baggage as well. That is what doing the work. I mean, I've been doing like self-development work on myself since I was 20, and coaching people. I was, a coach from really young, actually, and doing all my stress management stuff. So I had quite a good understanding of quite a good self-awareness, actually. So I knew that it wasn't him, he's not doing this. It was actually how I'm responding to it. And that's the key thing about understanding yourself in that interim period when you're between relationships, actually getting to know yourself and understand what those things are that cause you most difficulty moving forwards, and what comes up for you in relationships. Having that awareness is really, really important, because when you go into a new relationship, things are going to come up, and you can't just blame that other person. You have to look at why you're responding in that way. So I'll give you an example. You know, I didn't want to appear jealous, right? So I was insanely jealous when I moved over to Ibiza to be with James. I was insanely jealous for various reasons and very, very insecure. But what I did was put up my walls, pretend I didn't care, pretending I wasn't bothered at all, which then gave James the message that I really wasn't bothered at all.
Yep.
And then he didn't feel safe, and then I didn't feel safe. And that's where it kind of unravels. You can understand that looking backwards. But I would say the advice is to anyone out there, you know, you can look at James and go, oh my goodness, it was really hard. Like, we had to unpack a lot of stuff. So having that self-awareness and knowing that it's not that other person doing something to you, it's actually how you're responding as well.
Do you still get jealous sometimes now? To be honest with me.
Not actually. No.
I would say a little bit of jealousy in a relationship is good. I think
so as well. I
think if you don't get jealous, that's when the complacency can come in. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I suppose I do. Yeah. It's kind of like it doesn't make me feel unsafe, and it doesn't put my shackles up. I'll actually say to him, that's the difference. I'll say to him, oh, who's that? Oh, who's that? You know, like, because James does work with other people around the andropause and all that, and he'll go off and do workshops. I'm like, oh, who was there? Do you know what I mean? And that's, I think, it's lovely that I can say that now, because I feel incredibly safe and incredibly in my own power to be able to say that, knowing that I am completely, completely safe.
Yeah. And that's really, really important. And as James said, I think a little bit of jealousy is good. It shows that you care. It shows that you care. If it becomes an argument, then no.
But I've had partners in the past that literally couldn't have given two hoots. They really gave me the impression, and they gave me the impression throughout that entire relationship, that they just didn't care what I did or what I got up to. And again, if you push that button, that's quite dangerous as well. Because then you go, oh, what can I do with that?
I think it comes down to like totally valuing yourself, right? Valuing yourself, but then also recognizing I'm choosing to be with this person because I recognize these things in them, and I'm privileged to be with them for those reasons. But therefore, other people must be attracted to those reasons as well. So I've got to play at top of my game. And I think that's like a healthy relationship with it. We're not talking about like the blind obsessive jealousy here, but just, you know, respecting your partner and recognizing what they have. Yeah.
Giving them their space and appreciating it. And I think a lot of what you've worked on sounds to me more like trust as well. Because if you don't trust your partner and you've got issues, then that's going to be an issue moving forwards in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly that, yeah.
It's also really interesting because people say, oh, you know, you trust them and then they break your trust. I didn't trust at all. Like, I came into this relationship not trusting at all. And that's, the trust has had to be built for both of us, actually. And that safety has had to be built. It wasn't, we loved each other very, very much. We're completely like full on with each other, but I wouldn't have said I trusted him, and it's had to be built over time.
Is that because you would just assume that all men were untrustworthy, or that James was displaying signs that he was untrustworthy?
Behavior.
Both.
Both. Yeah.
He's a bit of a player.
Again, it's really important to be really open about this, because this will help people, right?
That's why I ask these questions. Whatever comes out of my mouth, I did warn you.
No, it's good. It's really good. And I think it's really important, because I think if I'd have heard some of this stuff, you know, when I was going into this relationship, it would have really helped me, I think. So yes, it was partly, I just thought every man at some point is going to break my trust. There's also an element of not trusting myself, not knowing whether I could even see it through. So that was a really big thing for me. But also, James had come out of a really long relationship, and actually I now know that he didn't really know how to behave with someone like me. So he was doing things that kind of made me think, hang on a minute, mate, that's making me feel very uncomfortable, you know, like messaging his girlfriends and then going for lunches with girlfriends, but not even mentioning that he was doing it, you know, that sort of thing. And he'll just rock up and say, oh, I've just been for lunch with such and such. I'm like, that's nice. Good to tell me at all. So, but I really, and then that obviously made me want to shut down even more. So that's all the stuff we had to work through. And I know that James wasn't doing that on purpose. He actually, God love him, didn't have a clue.
Men are clueless in general. That's what I tell people. Being a man myself, I made the same mistakes 15 years ago. I was doing that. I didn't think there's anything wrong with that, because you don't really see the need to sort of overanalyze it, do you, at that point?
No.
But if it makes someone else feel uncomfortable, then that's when there's a problem.
Yeah. And I think that it's that honesty and the openness. I haven't got a problem with you've got lots of girlfriends, but it was, coming
to clarify, lots of girlfriends, you mean friends that are girls?
Friends
that
are girls. But I was coming, it's an open relationship, James. We're not meant like that.
It could be.
But, it's about, it was looking at the lens through my lens of having been a bit shafted basically in previous relationships, and then not being told about those girls and not being able to discuss it. And then when he did, I was fine about it. And then he went, oh my God, you can meet her. And I was like, oh, one of them is now my best friend.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've stolen her as my friend.
But how do you rebuild trust? Because people come to me and say, James, that I think all men are going to cheat on them, or all women are going to be rejecting them, whatever the situation might be. It's assuming everyone's the same, because they've had two experiences in their life that have given them this limiting belief, haven't they? Yeah. And they think this is what's happened. How do you go through that?
I think the honest answer is it takes time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good to discuss it, but I don't think there's a talking cure for it. Actions speak louder than words with that. So you can talk, and I think it does help if you say, I felt uncomfortable with this, that triggered me. That will definitely help get it out in the open. You can each understand where the other one is coming from and go, okay, well, I know that behavior is not acceptable, this behavior is. Then it's over time learning those and actually applying that and having the actions that support it. And unfortunately, I do think it is just something you've got to give time. Also, remember, nothing in life is certain. It's good to remind yourself of that. So invest all your trust in someone if you think it's worth it. But
we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and always have that kind of healthy balance, I guess.
I think what I would say on that is, what's the option? You've got an option. You've got an option to trust, or you've got an option not to trust. If you've got an option not to trust, your relationship is doomed anyway. But if you can, if you want this to go somewhere, we all are going to have to let our guard down a little bit. And I'm not saying just surrender to it all, but piece by piece, you can let go a little bit and actually think the alternative is, I completely screw this up.
Yeah.
And give up.
Well, for me, it became very binary. I had a very binary thought process. It was like, okay, I really want this, so I'll do what it takes to make it work, and I'll prove by my actions. Or the alternative is, I just walk away and I start all over again on my own. But I'm going to have the same problem down the road.
Because it's me.
Because it's me.
Yeah.
So I've got to work on my trust issues and my vulnerabilities, because that's just a bag that I'll keep carrying with me wherever I go.
That's true. I think everyone starting dating again has got a wall around them, protecting them from being hurt, but that can also keep people getting close to them as well. And people often ask me this, what should I do about this wall? I said, well, let it down brick by brick. When someone proves to you that they're worth this, have you gone up a little bit, but put yourself in a vulnerable situation that you're going to get to know people and do your best, but we're all a work in progress. And I think that's so true, that just do it slowly.
Yeah. Exactly. And also we are so designed to look for the worst case scenario and the worst outcome. And that's also embedded in our memories, right? So things that have happened to us. But I would say, if we can, just think, what is the best case scenario here? What could go right, rather than what could go wrong? What could go right? What could this become?
That's what I teach people every day. Exactly those words. Don't look for the red flags, look for the green flags. Look for the reasons this person could be the person that you're going to end up with. Because people self-sabotage all the time. You must see that in what you do.
Oh my God, all the time.
Yeah. And they think, well, they might say in your situation, well, I've eaten that chocolate today. I'm going to give up on the diet. I'm going to eat chocolate every day now. There's no point. Things like that you might get. So
and
how do you deal with that?
Well, we're very clear on that. We're like, everyone is human and we slip up. It's human nature. No one is perfect 100% of the time. But when you do have that slip, when you self-sabotage, the really important thing, so our brain, like I said, we'll look, our subconscious is always trying to take us back to the path of least resistance, safety in inverted commas, which means familiarity. So, it'll go, oh yeah, you've done it now, you've broken it. So just sit on the sofa now and order a pizza and some ice cream. You might as well. You've got to override that little voice. Go, right, do I want to be slave to that? Just my very basic reptilian subconscious telling me to go back and be safe, or do I want to actually press forward and grow here? So it's just about getting back on the horse the next day, going, okay, last night I slipped over, I had 8 pints, I ate a kebab, but I haven't mucked it up.
If you had 8 pints, you wouldn't be alive.
But that was last night. Today's a new day. Let's go for a walk to clear the head and just get back on the healthy eating and go from there. Because here's the honest truth as well. Like, we self-sabotage, it's only a temporary blip unless we make it something bigger, right? Yeah. If we allow it to continue and it is totally in our control, then that's when it is genuine sabotage. But we can just go, that was a blip. I'm overcoming it. I'm moving on forward.
And that's a skill, James, to be honest. That's a skill that it's a muscle in your mind in your brain that you practice over and over again, is overcoming that what I call bitch voice. You've got the boss voice and the bitch voice. So overcoming that bitch voice, when the bitch voice says, do this, you kind of want to come into the boss voice and go do the complete opposite to what the bitch voice has said. And actually that's a practice and actually awareness, really powerful awareness of saying, what's that voice saying right now? I'm not going to overanalyze I'm just going to go and do the opposite.
That's because we like to make excuses not to do things in life.
Yes.
That's what happens. So we're telling ourselves we want the easy option, don't we? That we're comfortable with, which might be eating a load of rubbish, watching Netflix. I'm watching Netflix at the moment, to be honest, this morning. That's the first thing I did. You guys were in the gym, I'm watching Netflix. But I've got to say, it's professional reasons. I was watching Love is Blind. Have you seen that?
No.
I've avoided it for 3 years. Watch the first series, amazing. I need to do a whole podcast on that. Maybe it's amazing. It's amazing. We're going to go off on tangents now, but we're going to finish off anyway. So I'll tell you what it's about. Anyone listening to this, because I may do a podcast. What it is, they get couples who pretty much speed date in separate rooms without seeing each other, and they live together but they don't see each other. And they have these really long dates all the time, and then they fall in love and they get engaged without seeing each other. Then they get to see each other, and then they go on a honeymoon, and then they all meet each other and people that they could have dated. And the rate that they fall in love is so intense. In 2 days, people are loving each other, and it's an experiment. And I absolutely find it fascinating, because then what happens is then they start to self-sabotage. Have I made the right choice? Is this person too old for me, too young for me, the right race, the right background? And they're sabotaging it. So I'm only sort of 6 episodes into this, and I'm loving it from my point of view. And I'll do a whole podcast on this when I've watched the entire series, and there's 3 of them. But I do recommend it because it's...
Oh my goodness, I love that. It's so true, isn't it? Because if you just go, this sounds really woo-woo, doesn't it? But that's kind of going from the heart to the headspace, isn't it? So you're going from the heart and your gut instinct and your intuition, and then you're going afterwards straight into the head. And that's when we operate from the head, which is what all of us mostly do. That's when you get into such a sticky wicket with everything, because your mind starts playing all these tricks with you.
Yeah, you do. It becomes a fantasy then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But in this situation, I think so far most of the couples that have then seen each other in real life are still attracted to each other and making it work. But there's arguments and things from their past come into this, and things that hold us back and self-sabotage. People think they're not good enough. And it's absolutely, from my point of view as a dating coach and relationship coach, is a brilliant program. And it's an experiment.
Oh, I got to watch that.
There's no actual advice on it. There's no coach on their coaching. So I really wish that they would do a UK version and stick me on there as a coach or a spin-off. And I want to do that. So that's one of my little plans.
Definitely.
I love to do that. But guys, we're going to finish off the podcast now. So off a tangent. We could talk for hours and hours here.
I know.
This would be great. But can you just tell everyone, if they want to know more about what you do and your midlife methods, how do they get hold of you? How do they find out more about you?
So you can come to our website, which is themidlifementors.com, or find us on socials. Will be the Midlife Mentors or Midlife Mentors across most platforms: TikTok, Facebook.
Oh, TikTok now.
Instagram.
On TikTok.
Are you on TikTok?
Can't believe I'm on TikTok and
I'm avoiding it.
Gone big on TikTok, unfortunately, but now it's the thing that just is a beast that can't be fed. I'm about 90,000 followers on there now, but
Wow.
it's one of those things that you just end up thinking, oh, I've got to do my TikTok video. But yeah, we're at Midlife Mentors on Instagram, and at the Midlife Mentors on TikTok, and then on YouTube we're the Midlife Mentors.
Fantastic. Well, as always, I absolutely love talking with you guys, and I know we'll do it again at some point. So thank you very much. Brilliant information. Have a great rest of the day.
You too, James. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespriest.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.